Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sunlight streaming through your curtains, and you feel a strange heaviness in your chest. It's not the weight of a bad dream or the residue of a restless night. It's something deeper, more insidious, a quiet, gnawing sense of emptiness. You brush it off, as you always do, and begin your day. You smile at the barista who hands you your coffee, even though they got your order wrong. You nod politely when your coworker interrupts your focus to vent about their weekend. You laugh at your friend's joke, even though it wasn't funny, because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You say yes to helping a neighbor move furniture, even though your back aches and you'd plan to finally take a day for yourself. By the end of the day, you're exhausted, not the kind of exhaustion that comes from hard work or meaningful effort, but the kind that feels like a slow erosion of your soul. You collapse into bed, staring at the ceiling, and wonder, why do I feel so empty when I've spent the entire day being kind, accommodating, and selfless? This is the paradox of niceness. We are taught from childhood that being nice is the ultimate virtue. It's the glue that holds relationships together, the currency of social harmony, the hallmark of a good person. But what if this relentless pursuit of niceness is not the path to fulfillment, but a trap? A silent thief that steals your authenticity, your energy, and your sense of self? What if the very thing we've been conditioned to believe is good for us is actually hollowing us out from the inside? Consider this. When was the last time you said no without guilt? When was the last time you expressed anger without immediately apologizing? When was the last time you prioritized your own needs without feeling selfish? If these questions make you uncomfortable, you're not alone. We live in a world that rewards niceness but punishes authenticity. We're praised for our compliance but criticized for our boundaries. We're celebrated for our selflessness but shamed for our self-care. And yet, beneath the surface of this societal ideal lies a darker truth. Niceness, when taken to its extreme, becomes a mask, a way to hide our true selves, to avoid conflict, to seek approval, and to escape the vulnerability of being seen. It's a defense mechanism, a survival strategy, a way to navigate a world that often feels unsafe. But at what cost? What happens when we sacrifice our authenticity on the altar of niceness? What happens when we trade our truth for the illusion of harmony? The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." These words cut to the heart of the issue. Niceness, in its most toxic form, is not an act of kindness, but a surrender of self. It's a way of conforming to the expectations of others at the expense of your own identity. It's a way of belonging to the tribe by disappearing into it. But here's the unsettling question. What if the tribe doesn't really care about you? What if your niceness is not a gift to others, but a burden to yourself? What if the people-pleasing, conflict-avoidant, self-sacrificing version of you is not the real you at all, but a shadow, a hollow imitation of who you could be? This is the tension we must confront. Niceness, as we've been taught to practice it, is not a virtue, but a compromise. It's not a path to connection, but a barrier to it. It's not a way of being good, but a way of being invisible. And the longer we cling to it, the more we lose ourselves in the process. So, let us ask the question that lies at the heart of this paradox. What is the hidden cost of always being nice? And more importantly, what would it take to break free from its grip? The answer, as we'll soon discover, is not a simple one. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, our relationships, and the world we live in. It demands that we question the very foundations of our identity and the values we've been taught to uphold. It challenges us to choose between the safety of conformity and the risk of authenticity. But before we can find the way out, we must first understand the trap. And that begins with unraveling the psychological and philosophical roots of this hidden problem. a problem that has shaped not only our individual lives, but the very fabric of our society. To understand why niceness has become such a pervasive and insidious force in our lives, we must first peel back the layers of its origins. This is not merely a personal failing or a character flaw. It is a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior, rooted in psychology, philosophy, and the very structure of human society. It is a survival mechanism, a cultural expectation, and a psychological trap all at once. Let us begin with the psychological roots. From the moment we are born, we are wired for connection. As infants, our survival depends on the care and approval of others. A crying baby learns quickly that smiles and coos elicit warmth and attention, while distress or anger may lead to discomfort or rejection. This early conditioning forms the foundation of our relationship with niceness. We learn, often unconsciously, that being agreeable and pleasant is the key to being loved, accepted, and safe. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, called this the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the social world. The persona is not inherently bad. It serves a necessary function, allowing us to interact with others in ways that are socially acceptable. But when the persona becomes too dominant, when it eclipses our true self, it becomes a prison. We become so identified with the mask that we forget who we are beneath it. We become nice, not because we genuinely want to be, but because we fear the consequences of being anything else. This fear is not irrational. Human beings are social creatures, and the threat of rejection or exclusion is one of the most powerful forces shaping our behavior. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote, "Hell is other people." While this statement is often misunderstood, its essence speaks to the tension between our desire for authenticity and our need for social approval. We are constantly negotiating between the fear of being judged and the longing to be seen for who we truly are. Niceness, in this context, becomes a shield, a way to protect ourselves from the vulnerability of being fully known. But the roots of niceness go even deeper, into the very fabric of our cultural and philosophical history. In the 19th century, Arthur Schopenhauer observed that human beings are driven by a fundamental will to survive and thrive. But this will often manifest in ways that are self-defeating. We seek happiness, but our attempts to achieve it often lead us further away from it. Niceness, in this sense, is a form of self-sabotage. We believe that by being agreeable and accommodating, we will earn the love and approval we crave. But, in reality, we often end up feeling resentful, depleted, and disconnected from ourselves. The cultural reinforcement of niceness is equally powerful. In many societies, particularly those influenced by collectivist values, niceness is not just a personal virtue, but a social obligation. To be nice is to be good, and to be good is to be valued. This is especially true for women, who are often socialized from a young age to prioritize the needs and feelings of others above their own. The psychologist Carol Jung coined the term ethic of care to describe this phenomenon, highlighting how women are taught to define their worth through their ability to nurture and accommodate. But this ethic, while noble in theory, often comes at a great personal cost. Even in more individualistic societies, niceness is often conflated with morality. We are taught that being nice is synonymous with being good, and that any deviation from this ideal is a sign of selfishness or moral failure. This binary thinking leaves little room for nuance or complexity. It ignores the fact that niceness can be a form of manipulation, a way to control others or avoid conflict. It overlooks the possibility that true kindness, rooted in authenticity and respect, may sometimes require us to be firm, to say no, or to confront uncomfortable truths. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche offered a radical critique of this moral framework. He argued that traditional notions of goodness, including niceness, are often rooted in weakness and resentment. Those who cannot assert themselves, who cannot embrace their own power and individuality, often resort to niceness as a way to gain control or moral superiority. This is not to say that all acts of niceness are insincere or manipulative, but rather that niceness when divorced from authenticity, can become a form of self-denial and self-betrayal. So, what does all of this mean for us? It means that the problem of niceness is not just a personal struggle, but a cultural and philosophical one. It is a reflection of our deepest fears and desires, our need for connection and our fear of rejection, our longing for authenticity and our fear of vulnerability. It is a product of our evolutionary history, our psychological conditioning, and our cultural values. But understanding the roots of the problem is only the first step. The real challenge lies in recognizing how this hidden force shapes our behavior, our emotions, and our identity in ways we may not even realize. It is a force that operates beneath the surface, influencing our decisions, our relationships, and our sense of self. And unless we confront it, we risk becoming prisoners of our own niceness, trapped in a cycle of self-sacrifice, resentment, and emptiness. As we move forward, we will explore the unseen consequences of this hidden force, how it silently shapes our personal and societal realities, and how it keeps us from living fully and authentically. But before we can break free, we must first see the trap for what it is. The hidden cost of always being nice is not always obvious. It doesn't announce itself with dramatic breakdowns or visible scars. Instead, it seeps into the cracks of our lives, quietly shaping our reality in ways we often fail to recognize. It's in the way we hesitate to speak our truth, the way we shrink from conflict, the way we prioritize others' needs over our own until we feel like strangers to ourselves. These are the unseen consequences, the silent, cumulative toll of a life lived in service of niceness. Let's start with the personal toll. When we constantly suppress our true feelings and desires to avoid conflict or gain approval, we create a rift between our external behavior and our internal reality. This dissonance, over time, leads to what psychologists call emotional exhaustion. It's the weariness that comes from pretending, from performing, from always being on. It's the feeling of being drained, not because of the demands of life, but because of the demands we place on ourselves to be endlessly accommodating. This emotional exhaustion often manifests as resentment, a quiet, simmering anger that we direct inward because we've been taught it's wrong to express it outwardly. We resent the people we've said yes to when we wanted to say no. We resent the opportunities we've missed because we were too busy pleasing others. And most of all, we resent ourselves for not having the courage to prioritize our own needs. This resentment, when left unaddressed, can poison our relationships and erode our sense of self-worth. But the consequences go even deeper. When we habitually suppress our authentic selves, we lose touch with who we truly are. Our desires, our passions, our boundaries, all become blurred, buried beneath layers of niceness. We become like actors in a play, reciting lines written by others, performing roles that don't align with our true nature. Over time, this disconnection from ourselves can lead to a profound sense of emptiness. We may look successful, even happy, on the outside, but on the inside, we feel like imposters, hollow and unfulfilled. This internal void often drives us to seek validation from external sources. We become addicted to the approval of others, constantly seeking reassurance that we are good, kind, worthy. But this validation is fleeting, and the more we chase it, the more we reinforce the belief that our worth is contingent on our niceness. It's a vicious cycle, one that keeps us trapped in a state of dependency and self-doubt. The societal consequences of this dynamic are equally troubling. When niceness becomes the default mode of interaction, it stifles authenticity and genuine connection. Relationships become superficial, built on politeness rather than honesty. Conflict, which is a natural and necessary part of human interaction, is avoided at all costs, leading to unresolved tensions and unspoken resentments. And in the absence of honest communication, trust erodes, leaving us feeling isolated and disconnected, even in the midst of social harmony. This cultural emphasis on niceness also perpetuates inequality and injustice. Those who are marginalized or oppressed are often expected to be nice, to be patient, to wait quietly for change. Meanwhile, those in positions of power are rarely held to the same standard. This double standard reinforces existing power dynamics, making it harder for marginalized voices to be heard and for systemic change to occur. Niceness, in this context, becomes a tool of oppression, a way to maintain the status quo by silencing dissent and discouraging confrontation. Even our cognitive processes are affected by the tyranny of niceness. Cognitive biases, like the halo effect, the tendency to assume that nice people are also competent, trustworthy, and morally good, can lead us to make flawed judgments and decisions. We may overlook red flags in relationships or workplaces because someone is so nice. We may prioritize likability over integrity, choosing leaders or partners based on their ability to make us feel comfortable, rather than their ability to challenge us or inspire growth. And then there's the neurological impact. When we suppress our emotions, whether it's anger, frustration, or sadness, we activate the body's stress response. Over time, this chronic suppression can lead to physical and mental health issues, from anxiety and depression to cardiovascular problems, and weakened immune function. The body, it seems, pays the price for the mind's refusal to confront the truth. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of always being nice is the way it limits our potential. When we prioritize niceness over authenticity, we sacrifice our ability to take risks, to assert ourselves, to pursue our dreams. We become smaller versions of ourselves, confined by the fear of judgment and rejection. And in this shrinking, we lose not only our individuality, but also our capacity to contribute meaningfully to the world. The philosopher Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, wrote extensively about the importance of meaning in human life. He argued that our deepest need is not for pleasure or power, but for purpose, a sense that our lives matter, that we are living in alignment with our values and aspirations. But when we are consumed by niceness, when we prioritize the expectations of others over our own truth, we lose sight of this purpose. We become like ships adrift, tossed by the waves of external approval with no compass to guide us. The unseen consequences of always being nice, then, are not just personal, but existential. They touch every aspect of our lives, our relationships, our health, our sense of self, our potential. They shape the way we interact with the world and the way the world interacts with us. And unless we confront these consequences, unless we break free from the grip of niceness, we risk living lives that are not truly our own. But how do we break free? How do we reclaim our authenticity, our power, our purpose? The answer lies in a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges everything we've been taught about niceness and goodness. It requires us to confront our fears, to embrace our imperfections, and to redefine what it means to be kind. Breaking free from the tyranny of niceness is not a gentle process. It is a rebellion, a radical act of self-liberation that requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront discomfort. This rebellion is not about rejecting kindness or becoming selfish. It is about reclaiming your authenticity and redefining what it means to be truly kind. It is about shifting from a life of performance to a life of purpose, from seeking approval to embracing integrity. The first step in this rebellion is to recognize the difference between niceness and kindness. Niceness is often rooted in fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as bad or selfish. It is a performance, a mask we wear to navigate the world. Kindness, on the other hand, is rooted in love and respect for ourselves and for others. It is an authentic expression of our values, not a reaction to external expectations. Kindness allows us to say no when we need to set boundaries, to speak our truth, even when it's uncomfortable. To make this shift, we must begin by examining our motivations. Why do we say yes when we want to say no? Why do we suppress our anger or frustration? Why do we prioritize others' needs over our own? Often, The answer lies in our fear of judgment or rejection. We are afraid that if we stop being nice, we will lose love, approval, or belonging. But this fear is based on a false assumption that our worth is contingent on our ability to please others. The truth is, our worth is inherent. It does not depend on how much we give, how much we accommodate, or how much we suppress ourselves. This realization is the foundation of the rebellion. It requires us to challenge the beliefs we've internalized about niceness and goodness. It requires us to question the cultural and societal narratives that have shaped our behavior. And it requires us to embrace the discomfort of being authentic, even when it means risking disapproval or conflict. One powerful tool in this process is the practice of setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to healthier, more authentic relationships. They are a way of honoring our needs and values while respecting the needs and values of others. Setting boundaries can feel terrifying at first, especially if we've spent our lives avoiding conflict. But with practice, it becomes a source of empowerment. It allows us to show up as our true selves, rather than as a version of ourselves designed to please others. Another essential aspect of the rebellion is learning to embrace our emotions, all of them. Anger, frustration, sadness. These are not signs of failure or moral weakness. They are signals telling us that something is out of alignment. When we suppress these emotions in the name of niceness, we cut ourselves off from valuable information about our needs and values. By allowing ourselves to feel and express these emotions in healthy ways, we reclaim our authenticity and our power. This rebellion also requires us to redefine success. In a world that often equates success with likability and approval, it can be difficult to prioritize authenticity over popularity. But true success is not about being liked by everyone. It's about living in alignment with our values and aspirations. It's about making choices that honor our truth, even when they are unpopular or misunderstood. History is filled with examples of individuals who broke free from the constraints of niceness to live authentically and make a meaningful impact. Rosa Parks, for instance, was not being nice when she refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. She was being courageous, standing up for her dignity and the dignity of others. Similarly, artists like Frida Kahlo and writers like James Baldwin rejected societal expectations to create work that was raw, honest, and transformative. These individuals remind us that true greatness often requires us to defy convention and embrace our authenticity. But rebellion is not just for the famous or the extraordinary. It is a choice available to each of us in our everyday lives. It is the choice to say no to a request that drains us. It is the choice to speak up when we see injustice, even when it's uncomfortable. It is the choice to prioritize our own needs and desires, not out of selfishness, but out of respect for our humanity. This rebellion is not easy. It requires us to confront our fears, to face the discomfort of being misunderstood or judged. But the rewards are profound. When we break free from the grip of niceness, we reclaim our authenticity, our energy, and our sense of self. We create space for deeper, more meaningful connections with others, and we begin to live lives that are not just nice, but truly fulfilling. As we move toward the final revelation, it's important to remember that this rebellion is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process, a daily practice of choosing authenticity over approval, courage over comfort, and truth over performance. It is a journey that requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to embrace the messiness of being human. But the ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization, is that this rebellion is not just about breaking free from niceness. It is about discovering who we truly are beneath the masks and the performances. It is about reclaiming our power, our purpose, and our potential. And it is about realizing that the most radical act of kindness we can offer to ourselves and to the world is to live authentically. Here it is, the heart of the matter, the revelation that redefines everything. The hidden cost of always being nice is not just the erosion of your authenticity or the depletion of your energy. It is the loss of yourself. When you prioritize niceness over truth, when you shrink yourself to fit into the expectations of others, you are not just sacrificing your desires or your boundaries. You are sacrificing your very essence, the unique, irreplaceable core of who you are. This is the ultimate truth. Niceness, in its most toxic form, is not an act of kindness. It is an act of self-abandonment. But there is a deeper layer to this truth, one that is both liberating and unsettling. The realization is not just that niceness can be harmful, but that it is often a form of self-deception. We tell ourselves that we are being nice for the sake of others. But in reality, we are often being nice for the sake of ourselves, to avoid discomfort, to gain approval, to maintain control. We use niceness as a shield, a way to protect ourselves from the vulnerability of being seen, the risk of being rejected, the uncertainty of being authentic. And yet, this shield comes at a cost. It keeps us from experiencing the fullness of life, the joy of genuine connection, the power of standing in our truth, the freedom of living without apology. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of performance and pretense, where we are constantly measuring our worth against the expectations of others. The philosopher Aldous Huxley once wrote, "There is only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving, and that's your own self." This statement cuts to the core of the issue. The rebellion against niceness is not just about changing how we interact with the world. It is about changing how we relate to ourselves. It is about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we have disowned, the desires we have suppressed, the truths we have silenced. It is about becoming whole. This process of reclaiming ourselves is not easy. It requires us to confront our deepest fears, the fear of being unlovable, the fear of being alone, the fear of being wrong. It requires us to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty, to embrace the messiness of being human, to let go of the illusion of control. But in doing so, we discover something extraordinary, that our true worth is not something we earn through niceness or approval. It is something we embody through authenticity and courage. The ultimate truth, then, is this: the most radical act of kindness you can offer to yourself and to the world is to be yourself. Not the polished, perfected version of yourself that you think others want to see, but the raw, imperfect, beautifully human version of yourself that you truly are. This is not selfishness, it is self-respect. It is not rejection, it is liberation. It is not weakness, it is strength. When you embrace this truth, something profound happens. You begin to see that the people who truly matter, the ones who love you for who you are, not for what you do for them, will not abandon you for setting boundaries or speaking your truth. You begin to realize that the relationships built on niceness are often the shallowest, while the ones built on authenticity are the most enduring. And you begin to understand that the world does not need more nice people. It needs more real people, people who are willing to show up as themselves in all their complexity and contradiction. This realization is not just personal, it is societal. When we collectively reject the tyranny of niceness, we create space for deeper, more meaningful connections. We challenge the systems and structures that reward conformity and punish individuality. We pave the way for a world where kindness is not about performance, but about presence, not about approval, but about authenticity. But the journey does not end here. The ultimate truth is not a destination, it is a way of being. It is a daily practice of choosing authenticity over approval, courage over comfort, truth over performance. It is a commitment to showing up as yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it's uncomfortable. And so, as we come to the end of this exploration, I leave you with this question. What would it look like to stop being nice and start being real? What would it feel like to reclaim your authenticity, your power, your purpose? What would it mean to live a life that is not just nice, but truly fulfilling? The answers to these questions are not found in the words of others, but in the quiet depths of your own heart. They are not something you can think your way into, but something you must feel your way into. They are not a destination, but a journey toward wholeness, toward freedom, toward the truth of who you are. And so, the rebellion begins, not with a grand gesture, but with a single step, a step toward yourself, a step toward the truth, a step toward the life you were meant to live. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message, and don't forget to leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.